So today we'll be in the book of Habakkuk. If you weren't here last week, Andrew did an awesome, amazing overview of what the book of Habakkuk is about, how to wrestle with and embrace lament. And today we're going to start that study, going over the first few verses, kind of talking about what does lament mean, and really how to authentically pray, how to authentically communicate our lament to God. I don't know if it's just me, but there's definitely a sense of, in the last few weeks, heaviness in this church. I mean, as you can tell, it's kind of discouraging to see empty chairs and sad faces, but that's kind of the season we're in. Everyone, at least from what I'm aware of, seems to be going through something, and we need the ability to voice what that is for ourselves. Today, I hope to give us some of the tools to do just that. It's actually kind of funny. I've taught on Mother's Day, I think 2 times in a row or 3 times in a row. Don't know what that's about. Maybe I just like my mom a lot, or the church sees that I do. So go ahead and go to Habakkuk chapter 1. I'm going to go ahead and pray, and then we'll talk about authentic prayer. God, I'm nervous, if I'm being honest. I think this is a topic that's heavy. I think there's a heaviness in the air, heaviness in our hearts. Mother's Day brings up a lot of emotions, God. I know for my dad, it's loss with his mom, and then I know with my siblings, it's joy of the young families that they have, and just balancing act is really what Mother's Day feels like every time it comes around, of the sorrows and the joys, the highs and the lows. So I pray that as we go about our conversations today and go about the message today, that you would speak to each person, whatever season that they're at, whether a time to dance or a time to mourn. So guide us in this time, God. Guide me as I speak the word, and help us all to be charitable during such a special day to honor all the women in our lives, all those mothers. And we pray this in your name. Amen. So, I have a funny story. Have you guys ever said something, like really said something, in an argument, and you didn't expect to say it? I have, right, Glory? All the time. And then I'm like, ooh, I can't take that back. Now, I would say it, because it was kind of funny in retrospect, but I'm not going to, because I like being married. But I remember one time with my mom, we had these, because my granddad used to work at in the Air Force and NASA, so he had these model planes that he gave us one time, and they were metal. And if you guys know, metal planes are sharp. And you're not supposed to play with them on the carpet in the apartment, but we did, all of my brothers and I. So my mom repeatedly would warn us, hey, those are outside toys. We don't want them in the house. We don't want anyone to step on them. You can probably realize what happened next is as my mom is cooking, she has something in her hands and her heel straight into a model airplane. And what I said was unexpected. Oh, I should not have done that. And then she said something to the effect of, yeah, I told you. And we tend to do that a lot. We tend to, in the rush of the moment, the passion of the moment, blurt things out. Blurt out how we truly feel and think. And that day I did learn a few words that I did not know, understandably. But it's because my mom was caught in the moment. And we often find ourselves needing to express our words differently than we typically would. And there's actually a story that stands out to me that might be one of the most important moments in my life because it really showed me what lament looks like. So if you know anything about my family, which you don't because they live in Texas, but my parents oftentimes, they never served in big ministries, but their ministry was to visit people. So I always tagged along. I was always one of the siblings that would tag along with my parents to visit people. And one of those people was this woman. and she had 2 sons, still has 2 sons. And we pull up to the driveway, my mom parks the car, and typically we just run inside, right? It's usually just the kids go do their thing, they go hang out with the other kids, go be a babysitter and lose at Halo because they're better than you, right? Go entertain the kids, I'm gonna talk to the parents, right? That's usually how this kind of worked. This time, my mom didn't have us run straight inside. She said, hey, before you go inside, I need to tell you what's going on. You're going to see things on the wall you've never seen before. On the wall is going to be pictures of a baby. And this is a baby that's no longer here. It's called a stillbirth. And it was the first time I had ever heard of something like this, first time I've ever seen this. So when I did walk in that house and saw these beautifully shot pictures in black and white, it was of someone who's no longer here. It was the one day they were around. They gave birth to a baby that did not live. And I don't remember if it was the first or second stillbirth that this woman had, but it was one of them. And as we entered the house, it was kind of a solemn, different entrance. Wasn't really lively, wasn't really the same old hang out with the kids. There was a cloud in that home, a cloud surrounding everybody. And as my mom did her thing, being the hero that she is, comforting somebody else, I would run outside and play with the kids in the backyard, in the front yard, lose at Halo. And in passing, I remember hearing, I don't remember the words, but I remember how I felt, that this woman was screaming, yelling, crying, and it kind of shook me up. I had never heard someone truly lament the way this woman did. And yet, she had this weird dichotomy in the things she was saying, because at the one hand, she was saying a lot of bad things that I don't think you're supposed to say to God, or at least I thought I did when I was 12 or 13. And then on the other hand, all these words of trust and hope. And it was this strange dichotomy that this woman had. And that's really what lament is. As Andrew put it, lament is a prayer of pain that leads to trust. It's this overflow of emotion where we let the heart loose, where we express, we wrestle and embrace God all at the same time. And I believe maturity in our relationship with Jesus is defined by the authentic prayer that comes from laments, rejoicing, and other forms. But today we're going to be talking about authentic prayer during tough times. And for this woman, it was a tough time. And for you, understandably on Mother's Day, it could be a tough time as well. And we're empathetic to that fact. But today we're going to read about someone else who is dealing with a tough time. His name is Habakkuk. This was during around the early 600 BCs. The southern kingdom of Judah was in a really bad spot. And Habakkuk was a prophet at the time, just filled with worry, anxiety, and stress over the state of his people, the state of the leadership. So we're going to go ahead and read his complaint after observing the state of things that he gives to God. So let's go to Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 1. The oracle that Habakkuk the prophet saw. O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not hear? Or cry to you violence, and you will not save? Why do you make me see iniquity, and why do you idly look at wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arises. So the law is paralyzed, and justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous, so justice goes forth perverted. Oddly enough, the first time I read this, I actually thought of a different tragedy, the Aurora Theater shooting, where several dozen people I knew were in that shooting. I don't remember whether anyone passed away from it, but I remember how many people I knew from it. And these were the things that they said post-tragedy, post-shooting. Why do you make me see this, God? Where are you? How could you do this? And Habakkuk is asking these questions in a time of turmoil for the southern kingdom of Judah as well. He's complaining to God. He's complaining to God about everything that he sees, because it's kind of hard for us to imagine or picture this society, but think of the worst of the worst, right? The most evil kingdom you could. Cannibalism, sexual abuses that happened to minors and adults, violence towards themselves and other nations, their own citizens, money laundering and the financial side, like every aspect of society that could be corrupt was corrupt, right? The Chaldeans, the Babylonians. So Habakkuk is looking at this culture that was nearby and influencing his culture, the southern kingdom. And they started adopting these pagan practices, and they started adopting not just them, but other nations around them, sacrificing children on altars that would melt them alive, or the way that cannibalism infiltrated the culture, or the hatred and the evil, and all these things that I could say and go on, but I think we get the point. So, is it right to complain to God? Because Habakkuk really does here. There's actually 4 questions that really stood out to me, and they all revolve around God's character. All the questions that Habakkuk brings up. Is God good or loving? Does God know better? Is God strong enough? Where is God? And let's find those questions again. Let's read verses 2 through 3 especially. O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not answer? You will not hear. Or cry to you violence, and you will not save. Why do you make me see iniquity? And why do you idly look at wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise. Habakkuk really felt forced to see grossly evil and immoral behavior. And some of us have probably been there, right? You've been in a season in life where it's like something at work is falling apart, your family is falling apart, you are falling apart, and you just feel forced, like you're watching the worst movie ever, and it's your life, and it's just crumbling before you. That's how Habakkuk feels for the people of Judah, forced to see grossly and immoral behavior. Or if you work in law enforcement or been on the other side of the law, he complains of this too in his culture, that the law is unable to act or move because justice is corrupt. That those who are guilty get away with it and those who are not get worse than they needed. It's this unbalanced scale of power in his culture. Paralyzed, as he puts it. So there's a lot going on here in Habakkuk where he, the prophet, is expressing, setting the tone and the mood for what life was like, what the culture was like. But there's also something to keep note of here. He doesn't mince any words. He doesn't hold anything back. He's honest. He's honest with God. How many of us can say that we, too, are openly sharing everything in our hearts with Jesus? There's one time I had a buddy of mine. I love this guy, and he was in a like alcohol AA or Alcoholics Anonymous or one of those groups, and he started talking about how hard his life is. And you would think in a setting like that, it would be a safe space to share openly. And the group leader quickly knocked it down of, no, we're just talking about the good here. We don't want to hear everything in your heart. We just want to hear that everything's fine, the program's working, and then eventually you leave and you're no longer our problem, right? I don't remember the organization that it was, but it was weird when he told me this. That wouldn't it make more sense to be authentic and authentically pray. But we see that here in Habakkuk, where he is openly sharing everything on his heart and mind. God, I trust you, but look around. How did you let this happen? How did you let my people turn into this smutty, gross culture? The people are corrupt, the justice is corrupt, everything is wrong. Authentic prayer is the act of openly sharing everything in our hearts with Jesus. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And depending on where you're at in life, you'll find that it's one of those three. That a lot of your prayers are going to sound boring because it's, God, thank you for this food, and thank you for my kids, and thank you for my job, and those are the good times. It's good to have the boring seasons where nothing's really going on. There's also the bad, where there's kind of like a thorn in your side, where it's like, yeah, life's really good, but man, Daryl's the worst. Or this thing at work is the worst. Or we don't sleep in the same bed anymore. My kids don't talk to me anymore. There's always those seasons as well where there's a gap. And then, of course, there's the ugly, where it seems like, how am I going to make it to the end of today, the next hour? Everything's wrong. Authentic prayer is the act of openly sharing all those things in our souls with Jesus, allowing the soul to scream when it needs to. And what's interesting is that in Western society, we don't do that. We tend to stifle and suffocate the soul. Have you ever noticed when you go to a funeral, it's like kind of like a fast food drive-through, where you drive up, you're like laughing, even leading up to, or sometimes you might be joking to kind of break the tension that you're going to a funeral. You get to the funeral, there's like a 45-minute session where the guy talks, you totally don't listen because you're so focused, of course, on what happened and remembering and reflecting. And then you get back in the car as if nothing happened. And we kind of do these drive-through mournings and lamentings. And I think there's something off about that. And I don't think God designed us that way because, at least when I go to funerals, I don't think about it for only 45 minutes and stop. Like me, you probably do the same, where you think about those people throughout the week, throughout the month, leading up to it. And I think it's interesting that during this time for Habakkuk, this probably wasn't the first time he complained to God. I'd assume he probably had these feelings for a long time. But then it's interesting when we think about our relationship with Jesus that we always keep him at arm's length, it seems like. At least I notice in my own life I do, where I'll share this much with you. Work's good. I'm about to get a raise. Marriage is good. But God, when we had that miscarriage scare a couple weeks ago, I hated you for that. I hated everything about you. Everything. But we can't let our pain define our perspective. That's bitterness. And luckily, it's just a scare. But it scared me. We also can hide from or suppress our pain. That's blindness. But we tend to do these two things in our relationship with God. We become hardened and bitter, or we blind ourselves and block out the pain. I don't think either response is right. with Jesus, we need to authentically pray, be open, even when it hurts, sharing the sorrow, letting the soul scream, even if it's agonizing. Because that's what a relationship with Jesus looks like. It's vulnerability, not stoic veneration, right? It's not, you're just a guy that sits on the mantle. No, it's the awesome, powerful, mighty, living God with me in everything. Trusting him with our highs and lows. So I'm intentionally sharing this message short because I was afraid of crying. But I also wanted to give us time to reflect on the types of lament you may have encountered or may not have. And it's individual, collective, and universal lament. So go to 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 6 and 7. And here, this is technically written, this book, to the church, not a church, right? The Apostle Peter was writing to churches in 1 Peter, but I think we can apply this individually as well. So go to 1 Peter chapter 5, 6 and 7. And let's read. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you, casting all your anxieties on him, because he cares for you. Authentic prayer, authentically praying, is something we have to do individually. We have to authentically pray knowing, whatever season we're in, that God cares for you. And I didn't actually believe that until 2021, which is a weird thing to say for a guy that's grown up Christian, grown up in the church. I believe collectively God loves you, but it wasn't until I went to therapy, that my therapist was like really leaning in one day of like, but you don't believe God loves you, do you? And he leaned in and leaned in and leaned in, pressed until I kind of broke. I was like, yeah, I my entire life feel like I have to just work and be perfect and earn my way, right? Because we usually adopt the patterns that we see in our parents and apply those to God, but they're not true. So those things we do for our parents and our mentors and guardians, we usually apply that anthropomorphism to God. Well, my dad on earth is this way, so God must be this way, so I'll behave this way. But authentic prayer is knowing God cares for you and wants your anxieties, wants your worries, wants your struggles. He wants your whole heart, not just some of it, all of it. So that's individual lament. But let's read about collective. Go to Romans chapter 12, verse 15. This one's super short. Romans chapter 12, verse 15. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Now this is a little out of context, right? Paul, here in the book of Romans in chapter 12, is writing to a large audience. He's kind of doing it the Paul thing where he writes one sentence, but it never ends, and he's just going on and on and on on things you need to do that are obedience to Jesus, ways to walk in a relationship with Jesus. But this is applied to the collective lament. And I think oftentimes in our American Western context, when we leave those funerals, we kind of leave our emotions there too. And I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's emotionally healthy discipleship. I don't think that's the way we're meant to mourn, where it's, all right, I have breakfast, and then I'm going to go to a funeral and cry my eyes out, and then I'll just go to do this other thing. And it's just like, no, that's when this scripture was written, when all these scriptures were written, mourning was a days long, weeks long, months long, years long run. For some people, it doesn't end. I mentioned my dad earlier. Every Mother's Day is the same feeling for him of mixed emotion. His mom died prematurely, or at least a lot sooner than we thought, from stomach cancer. But then he's also married to the best mom in the world, my mom. So he's in this weird, pickle of not feeling like he had enough time with his own mom and feeling blessed out of his mind that he gets to be with my mom. So we rejoice with people who rejoice and weep with those who weep. And today is both those things. And I pray that as we go into table talks pretty soon here, you're going to hear a lot of things come up. And that's normal, that's okay. I hope you share them if you're willing. And we should rejoice with the new babies that are being born and also weep with those who can't have any. But I think a maturity in faith, a maturity in our spirituality and our relationship with Jesus is where we understand that there is a time for both, to rejoice and weep. So let's end in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and learn about our last passage. So we learned to authentically pray, knowing God cares for you, individual, to obey God and share in the sufferings of others, Romans 12:15, collective lament. But what is the universal lament? The lament of all people through all time. Well, if you've ever wanted to be depressed, you'll read Ecclesiastes. He'll tell you. He'll tell you what is the universal lament. And Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 11. And of course, this is even more out of context than Romans 12, right? There's a lot in the book of Ecclesiastes. And when we went through it the first time, I thought I knew it. I don't. It's very layered. I think it's the hardest book in the Bible because this is one of the wisest men in history talking about life itself with God. So, if anything, read this with authentic prayer in mind, authentic communication with God in mind, in times of suffering, in tough times. So we'll read through this, and then we'll break into our table talks where we talk in further detail. For everything there is a season, verse 1, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. What gain has the worker from his toil? I have seen the business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. So, if I wanted more tithes, I would tell you that there's an easy answer to what's going on in your life. The truth is, I have no idea, and you may not either. I actually went back and read through some of the people that are famous stories of suffering. Ruth, Job, Joseph. And a lot of the time, God doesn't say why they went through what they did. Or at least we don't know until they're already dead. And sometimes God works in that way. And it might fall on deaf ears to say God works mysterious ways. We know that. We've been to church. But God's working. And I think we often forget that when we're alone and suffering. We're going through the worst of the worst. And it's hard to keep that in mind and to even talk to God because you hate him or you don't want to be around him. Or you don't really want to be vulnerable because it hurts too bad. But like Andrew said, there's a wall that we tend to face in seasons. Sometimes the seasons of rejoicing or seasons of mourning. Usually it's the seasons of mourning, though, where we hit that wall and we're brought to a crossroads of God or no God, obedience or disobedience, of trusting God through the storm or just going back to the coast and avoiding it altogether, right? So I'm not here to give you an easy answer to what you're going through. I don't know you. You don't know me. You didn't know that a miscarriage almost happened to us. Some of you did. But I also don't know everything you've gone through. You don't know everything I've gone through. But God does. And we can hold to that. And when we pray with authenticity, with a genuineness, with an openness, we can trust him with some of those secrets of suffering. You don't have to tell everybody what's going on. You may not even be comfortable telling people in your group, right? But my ask of you today, the application I want for you, is that the next time you're alone with God, just tell him everything. Try it. See what happens. You'd be amazed at how your heart changes when you're open, honest, vulnerable. And then when you've done that step, eventually you find these circles of belonging where you find your holy trinity of people you trust that are not God, of course. You know, a spouse, best friend. Talk to them. God made you a social creature. Be social. Talk to people when it's time. And then eventually you'll get to the point of that woman from the beginning of this message, where now she's gone through the wall of her faith, having 2 sons and losing 2 children, giving birth to 2 dead children. And now she's the one that visits other moms and relates. Doesn't have the answer, has never said she did, but just sits there and listens and suffers alongside and cries alongside. And it's inconvenient, it's difficult, but I believe that's sometimes why we go through suffering. It's not always necessarily about us. It's about maybe somebody else, to walk them through, or at least be alongside them. Let's pray, and then we'll go ahead and gather into our table talks. God, Habakkuk sucks. Suffering sucks. I don't like this book. I'm being honest, God. I really don't. It is doing things in my soul that I did not know were there. I did not know that my daughter, who's not even here yet, was my God for a minute, and that I put you in a box. But I've taken that idol down. Whether or not I get to see her in October, you are good. I trust you. And whatever is going on in the hearts of everybody else, where they have something else that they trust more than you, I ask that they would take that chaotic, bold step of faith and trust you above all. So lead us, guide us, help us to be slow to speak, quick to listen, and kind. And help us to authentically pray every day, allowing the soul to scream joy and sadness. We pray this in your name. Amen.